Today we are checking out a brand new plugin from Pulsar based on a familiar bit of hardware. Let's check it out. So what's up guys, welcome back to the channel, Chris here. So like I was saying, Pulsar, brand new piece of software. We're checking out the IPA 25 today. If you're familiar with it, this is based on the API 2500, a really solid compressor. We're going to be showing it off on some drums. I love this compressor on drums and I believe it's quite well known for being used on drums. So I've got a few examples of some drums that we're going to listen to, starting with a real kit that I've got here. We're going to walk through the plugin, show off all the controls, get some sounds and see what we got here. Now, starting us off, let's listen to just the dry sound, no compression. This is what it sounds like. So that's our dry drum sound. Now let's slap some compression on there. So there you have it. That's the compressor, really smacking up those drums. We're going to dive through all the individual controls, see what Pulsar's got going on. They've added a few additional features that are quite convenient. Starting us off with the main compressor controls, what you can see right here. I'm actually going to quickly default this. So let's go one forward, one back. There we go. Back to the start. Going to turn the auto makeup gain on because it sounds quite nice in this case. Now, starting from the top, you've got your threshold. This is how much compression you're doing. Imagine if you had a line and this is your threshold. Every time certain peaks or the volume of any signal passes that line, we're going to start compressing, right? So you can actually see it in this screen right here. So as you can see, the more I compress, we're passing that threshold and you can start to see the compression taking effect. Now, these two screens we've got on top are actually very convenient because first of all, you can see the signal coming through, and then you can see the compression, how much dBs we're reducing, right? You got -3, -6, etc. And you can also see it here in a slightly more detailed figure. This is really good just to see what the response of the compressor is, even as you're changing the controls. This is updated live, so really convenient. So got your main compressor controls, the threshold, the ratio, how much compression we're actually doing, right? The more I squeeze that, the more it's getting compressed without necessarily changing the threshold. Then we've got the knee. That's basically when it passes the compression, how hard is it compressing? Like how quickly is that compression taking action? If you looked at it as a sharp peak like this, as a sharp corner, the knee is like how bent or sharp that corner is as it's compressing, right? So we can change that. We've got a few options, soft, medium, or hard. Moving over, we've got our attack and release controls, how fast the compressor is turning on and how fast it's releasing as the sound, as the transient disappears, right? So if I speed up the attack all the way, got a really fast attack. You can see that here, it's really picking up those hits. And as I slow it down, now it's, I could push up the threshold, but you can see that spike is a lot softer now. It's not as hard as opposed to that, really capturing the transients. And same with the release. The faster it is, the quicker that compressor is turning off and on, and the slower it is, the longer it takes to release. Like so, like this, you can see we've got these long, smooth lines. It's taken a while for that compressor to get back to zero, as opposed to here, it's just capturing those peaks, right? Sounds really great otherwise. So let's set this somewhat like, normally I like a slow attack, fast release, especially when you're working with drums. You're adding a lot more transient to the sound, getting the punch to really be emphasized. And then I usually will dial it back, work anywhere in between, just see what flavors I can get out of this. Now, makeup is just your volume because I have this on, this automatic mode. It's just going to adjust the volume automatically, which is great in the sense of compression because you want to hear what it's doing. If this was off, as soon as I compress, it gets way quieter, right? So you can hear what the compressor is doing, but to really understand it in context, you need to boost that back up. And you can see here on your input and your output meter, I can match that. Or I can just leave the auto mode on and it saves me that hassle. Then lastly, we have our mix, so we can have a balance between our wet and our dry sound. We can run this in parallel, or we can just have a full 100% compressed signal. So if I wanted to just, this is our dry sound, if I wanted to just blend that in, I could do so. Sounds great. Obviously, I'm compressing quite intensely, so let's dial that all back a bit. Bump that mix back up. Nice, somewhere like that. Lovely. Now, that's basically all the main compression controls. If you're familiar with compression, you're familiar with these controls. Now, this plugin in particular, also the API piece of hardware, the 2500, had a few extra options. This was part of the beauty of this compressor. Now, starting off in the options, right? We've got a few things. These are some more Pulsar-based controls that they've added for the sake of having a plugin. It's good to have these extra features, right? Such as, we've got these two controls, left, right, and then we've got left and right. What does this mean? We can independently compress the left or the right side differently. We can have different controls. Say I change the threshold, I change the ratio, attack, release. Then I go into the right side and I do the same thing. I want a bit different. For whatever reason, if you want independent control over your left and right side, you have that. I'm going to slap this back to the default preset. And then if I click on this, now we have access to our mid and our sides. So now you could compress the middle of your channel differently to the sides of your channel. That's something I find quite interesting. These controls weren't available on the original piece of hardware, and I think it's great. It's a nice little feature they've incorporated. Don't know how much I'm going to be using it, but it's there if you want it. And so same thing, if I wanted to compress the mids and the sides, I could change the controls there. Or if I click on this, it's just going to do it together as one. I can have it on left and right and be the same thing. Now, the next mode, we've got feed forward and feed back. Now this, funnily enough, I saw a video the other day actually explaining this, so it's a little bit fresh in my head, but I found a picture to help explain this. So to break this down, feed forward, you've got your signal coming out, it's split, so now you have a parallel signal, right? You've got two signals moving at the same time. Your first sound is going into your amplifier and then just going out to the output, right? The amplifier is what's changing the volume. It's what's doing the compression sound, right? Now you've got that second signal, which is going in parallel. That goes through a couple of things. You've got your sidechain, EQ. So if you want to change the sound going in, we'll get into that a little bit later in this plugin. You can do that there. So that goes into your RMS or your peak detector. This is actually what's seeing how much volume is going through, right? That then goes into your compression controls, your threshold, your attack, your release, yada yada, back into the original signal, and that will then affect the amplifier. So those controls that are happening in parallel is judging what the compressor is doing, and then that goes back and out into the output. Whereas in feedback, that whole parallel chain is happening after the fact. So the signal goes through the amplifier, goes into the output, and after the output goes back in. So it's kind of feeding back, as the name states, right? So you're getting a different tonality. The hardware compressor included both of these, just a futuristic thing. You know, one was a more modern approach to compression. So they're like, it's two different tones, we're going to include both of them. So as they've included in the hardware, they've also included it in the software. So we've got, basically, you can look at it as two different tones of compression. Moving over, we've got the VCA. This is the actual kind of amplifier we've got going on. In the hardware, you couldn't change the amplifier, but in the software, Pulsar have allowed us to get different flavors of amplifiers that they've included, right? So starting with the IPA 25, that's based on the original hardware amplifier. You're getting the most true replication of the hardware sound if you stick with the original amplifier, right? But say you want a different vibe, you can pick the N diode. This will emulate a diode bridge VCA. Basically all that means is you're getting extra harmonics, you're getting a little bit more saturation, just a bit more flavor. These are all flavor controls at the end of the day. And then lastly, you have the V-Mu. This is based on very mu amplifiers, the push-pull tube compression, right? This Again, just another flavor. If you want it, it's there. And then lastly, we've got this drive control. Now this actually allows you to saturate, to get more saturation out of your sound. Let's give it a listen real quick and you'll see what I mean. I'm going to start with the IPA 25 and we'll have a flick through. You can hear that starting to saturate now. If I change it, not crunching up as hard, but a different flavor of saturation. And then we've got this is saturating heavy. And you can just see it even just looking at the response on the light here. So you've got 3 flavors of adding a little bit of saturation if you want. Or you can keep this drive off, keep it clean. You know, you'll still maybe get a little bit of flavor from picking which amplifier you want, but otherwise, if you want to drive it harder, you've got it there. The sidechain. Sidechain, we've got a couple different sidechain things in this plugin, right? So starting off in this main sidechain area, this will basically state whether you want the left and right side to be compressed independently, or if you have it on the far right, they're being compressed with the same amount on both sides, right? And then you've got allowance to move it anywhere in between. We've also got a few filters here. We've got a low pass, a high pass, and a band pass. And this you could look at. They've got a sidechain EQ here. It's doing the same thing. So if I didn't want the compressor to react to the low end as much, I could stick a low filter. That's not going to necessarily change the sound. It's just going to change how hard the compressor is working, because now this EQ'd signal is affecting it differently. So if I tick this off, we'll compress it slightly. And that kick, you can even just see it in the waveform here, is really loud in the drums, right? So if I pull this back, see the compressor is working harder on the snare now because we've removed the low end of the kick than, you know, everything else, right? And this sidechain EQ actually allows you to do numerous things. Normally you might just have, like you have here, a couple of filters, take off the low end, take off the high end, or just band pass, so you're just focusing on the middle frequencies. But the beauty of having this sidechain EQ here is if we want to, I can go and I can add a shelf and I can boost the top end, so the compressor is reacting harder to the bright shiny stuff, the impacts, the snares, the cymbals, this kind of thing. Or I could do the opposite effect and I could put the shelf down, so the compressor is now reacting more to the low end. You've got a few quick options here, or if you want to be a bit more detailed with it, you can actually go and change the physical sidechain here. And it's actually good, you've got a sidechain monitor, so if I wanted to hear what the signal is that's being sidechained, you know, that's like what the compressor is hearing, right? So if I turn this off, the sound is still the same, but the compressor is now reacting as if this was the sound that we're feeding into it. I'm gonna put this back to normal for now and show off the last section. We've got this punch. Again, different sidechain EQ. So you could look at this as, right? So normal, loud, and mid. So normal, no sidechain EQ, just the standard sound passes through, gets compressed, etc. If I put it on loud, you can see it's actually pulled out a little bit of the low end, boosted a lot of the top end. So now the compressor is reacting a lot more to the bright stuff, the bright signal, and less to the low stuff. So you're gonna get a different sound out of it. Mid, same thing, just less, and then we're back to normal. Now, this is where things get a bit interesting. We've got this clipper limiter section. This wasn't included the original hardware, but I'm glad they've included it here. When dealing with drums, having a clipper or a limiter is very convenient, and the fact that they've incorporated into this plugin is making my life way easier. Okay, so I'm going to pull the compression all the way back. Actually, we can just turn it off. We don't need to listen to it. We're just going to listen to what the clipper is doing. So this is what it sounds like. It's being squashed, right? This is a very extreme form of clipping, but I can pull it back. Like this is just shaving off those peaks, just those transients that are passing through, is clipping them, making sure that they're not loud, and in turn allowing us to actually bring the overall volume a little bit up. But you can actually see on the screen here, the blue signal is our clipped signal. You can see both of them happening at the same time. So if I clip more, you can see the effect happening there. So let's listen to it. You can hear that's getting hella squashed. But we can find a nice suitable place. check it off and on. It's actually making our overall volume a little bit louder because now we're squashing those peaks, getting a bit more volume of everything else, right? So if you didn't want to be as intense, you could turn that clipper into a limiter. Sounds a bit more transparent. And again, you can really push this if you wanted to. We're gonna leave it in a nice suitable area. Just attacking those main transients. Now here we've got a few controls. We've got pre-comp, pre-mix, and post-mix. So what does this mean? We can actually move where the limiter or the clipper is in the chain, right? In this case, let's get the compressor back on. I'm gonna set it to a nice suitable area. Okay, great. So this allows us to, like I was saying, move the location of the clipper or the limiter. In this case, if we had it pre-comp, that means it's going to be limiting the signal before it hits the compressor. So now the compressor doesn't necessarily have as much harsh peaks to affect it before it goes through, right? So if we look at it, if I turn off this clipper, you can see that being squashed a little bit more. So in premix, the limiter is going to be after the compressor now, but before the mix control, right? So this is just going to blend the overall process signal with the dry sound. Whereas I could have it post-mix, and so I could have my blend of my dry and compressed sound, but the clipper is going to happen after all of that. So now we can have the dry blended with the compressed signal and then still be limiting after that as like a little safety, you could say. Great options to have them there. I love Pulsar for their GUI. I'm a bit of a slut for a good GUI, I'm not gonna lie. Like, obviously sound is what matters here, but having great feedback, I just love it personally. I love a tool, a plugin that's really easy to see, looks a little bit posh, always helps, you know, but the extra controls they've added as well just makes this a dream to use. And it sounds really good. It's really giving me that API vibe, and I like the smack I'm getting from it. I like the clipper sound. Overall, it's doing a great job. And let's not forget, we've got all of these presets here. If you want to try it out on certain instruments, they've gone ahead and done that for you, which is great. And that is pretty much all of the controls we've got on the screen. Sorry, it's a bit of a ramble, but that's what we're working with. But now that that's out of the way, we're just going to play through a few examples, see how it sounds. All right, so we've got some slightly different program drums here. Let's give this a listen. Sounding sick. I'm really loving that end diode with a little bit of drive. Sounding really nice, just giving me a bit more sauciness. Don't know how else I can explain it, to be honest, but sounding great. That's all I can say. It's sounding great. Let's check out these drums. Alright, overall, I'm really loving the sound of this. I think it sounds wicked. I'm going to lastly touch up on some little menus that you might not have noticed, such as in here, you've got oversampling, latency, stuff like this. You've even got step knobs if you want to change it to be a bit more like the original, which is great. Here you can actually change how much stuff you're seeing if you want to view less. You got an A and a B if you want to flick between, and you can even copy across the preset if you wanted to do that. You've got your presets, speaking of which, they're all in there. And then lastly in here, you've got a few extra things such as your look ahead or your pre-look ahead, I guess your look before, I don't know. And you can do external side chaining, you can change the gain if you're doing that. But otherwise, that's about it. Guys, let us know in the comment section, what do you think about this? Are you familiar with the API compressor? Compressor? Compressor. Have you used this before? What do you think? Personally, I'm a fan of the Pulsar stuff. I've reviewed a few of their plugins before, so feel free to check those out. But otherwise, that's about it for today, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The support really helps. Thank you to anyone who's already done so. Once again, I've been Chris Vella, and I'll see you on the next one.